Okay. So, welcome back, guys, from the exam. We're going to start doing the other half of the book, or the last half of the book. So, let's dive into chapter 8, which is talking about inventory. So once again, if you guys are going to follow along with me with the exercise, it tells you to open up inventory 18, student portable file. Okay. So first thing we're going to talk about is going to see how QuickBooks takes a look at how inventory is being tracked, right? So we mentioned this before, right? If you don't have that part of the window, in order for you to open it up again, right? So if notice this, right? I took out my inventory. In order to activate your inventory, right? You're going to go to your edit preferences, okay? You're going to go to items and inventory. Make sure you're on your company profile and say, yes, I would like to keep track of inventory. And then you're going to click OK. Click on that OK button. And then if you go to the home page, there, this is the inventory part, or the inventory, how we keep track of inventory. Okay, so pretty straightforward, right? You're going to make your purchase order, then you're going to receive the items from inventory, and then you're going to create a bill from those inventory items, okay? So this part right here is pretty easy and pretty straightforward. Now let's take a look at, if you guys remember, right? In order for you to be able to create those purchases, right? We got to first identify creating the inventory parts, because essentially what we're going to do is we can use those inventory items, right? So if we go to our items list, every time we either create a product, we can use it as it's considered a two-sided item, which allows you to not only use it to make purchases, you can use it to sell, you can use it to you can use it for both an expense and a revenue. Okay, so for example, right, I can use it to say that I sold an item, right, by going through my sales process. Okay, I can make purchases of it to increase my inventory. So in this case, I can use it in multiple forms. All right, so that's the cool thing about having those, and we're going to take a look at how do we create those inventory items. Okay. Now, one thing I do need to mention that the difference here between taking a look at this, right? This is how you activate your inventory. The one thing that is different between the 2018 and versus the 2019 version is that you guys are going to be introduced to what's called the Inventory Center. In 2019, they got rid of the Inventory Center. So they'll always tell you, oh, you can find the Inventory Center right here on your home page under Inventory Assets here. So if you see this little triangle, right, it's supposed to allow you to take you to the Inventory Center. I don't have that. Okay, in 2019, you don't have it, because what you're going to notice is that your Inventory Center actually is not as useful, because you're able to do all of those things by just going to the item list. Okay. So, plus they mention it very, very brief moment in your book, right? It's not too expansive, because you're able to enter everything that you can in the Inventory Center. You could do just as well as just going through the items list. Okay. Now, let's talk about how QuickBooks actually keeps track of your inventory. So we talked about the two different types, right? When you go to your items list, we have two different types of inventory. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click on a new item to show you what those two items are. You have inventory part, and then you have non-inventory part. Now in QuickBooks, when we learn about these two types of items, the best way to describe it is essentially taking a look at how we actually keep track of them. One is called perpetual, which in QuickBooks or in accounting in general, if you look at the definition of what perpetual means, it means often. It means constantly. You're constantly updating your inventory. So in this kind of sense, you can apply it to how an inventory part versus a non-inventory part is essentially going to be utilized, right? However, the book does describe to you that there are two tracking methods when it comes to inventory, right? You could either do perpetual, which is consistent or constant. You're constantly updating your inventory. Or we have what's called periodic, where we sell a product, but we don't occasionally update our inventory because of the idea that it's not something that we sell all the time. We don't care to keep track of that item because of how often we sell it. So that's essentially the same idea that you can apply to inventory versus non-inventory part, right? However, by default, QuickBooks in general keeps track of your inventory based on a perpetual type of method, meaning every time you sell a product, it's going to automatically update your inventory. Every time you purchase your inventory, it's going to automatically keep track of it because of the idea of doing the accounting behind the scenes. It automatically updates every single account without you guys having to do anything. So here, by default, QuickBooks is automatically going to keep track of your inventory every time you purchase something, every time you sell something, whatever it is. It will automatically keep track of it. However, to kind of differentiate the difference between inventory part versus non-inventory part is basically how often do you sell a particular item. So once again, an inventory part, if it's the main core of your business that you're often selling, you're making daily sales on it, then yes, that could be considered an inventory part. Whereas if you sell a product such as, for example, a custom camera, how often are you going to sell a custom camera? Right? It's probably maybe once a month you'll sell a custom camera because, again, it just depends on your customer. Do they want a custom camera? Do they want to purchase a camera that's already pre-made, right, that you sell in your store? And, especially with a custom camera, you can build it how you want to build it, right? But how often would you think you would be able to sell one to a customer, right? Maybe not so often. So that's exactly why that's the difference between an inventory part versus a non-inventory part. It's based on how often you sell that product. So we're going to take a look once again at inventory part, because we're going to go ahead and create a new item, which we've done before, right? Go to the items list. Down below, you're going to go ahead and click on item, and then you're going to click on that new button. Okay, so here we are. We're going to create our first inventory part. Okay, so here we are, inventory part. Okay, let me do that again. Inventory part. Okay, so notice this. It gives you 3 options or 3 accounts to link to this particular account. So if you guys remember that question, right, that items can only be linked to income accounts, this is a perfect example of it does not only link to just an income account. You're going to notice here, you're going to have a cost account. You're also going to have your asset account because you need to keep track of it. And then last but not least, you're going to also have your income account. So let's go ahead and take a look at how we're going to create our first item. So our first item that we're going to create is called frame 5x7 wood. Okay, and once again, your description could be whatever you'd like. So I think, let's see, I think the book says it's 5x7 wooden picture frame.
Yes.
Okay, all right. So once again, let's go ahead and take a look. Now, you can create this as a sub item, right? If picture frames are going to be your general or your main item, you could break it down by wood type, material type. So you could have that you could create this as a sub item. You can even break it down to color, right? If you have a wooden picture frame, it could come in black, white, oak, brown, green. It could come in different colors. So you can create a sub item. So once again, it just breaks down the item to even further based on what the product detail is. If it's a color, if it's a size, whatever it is, or maybe it's a different type of finish, you can create it as a sub item. But in this case, they don't want you to do that. They just want you to keep it as is. Okay? Now here they have what's called a manufacturing part number. So this is only crucial, okay, so once again, if this product, right, this picture frame that you're purchasing it from, if you want to keep it as a reference number, right, usually every product that gets shipped to you, there's like a barcode on it to let you know, right? You can use that to place it here in the manufacturing part number, okay? So once again, an example of this could be an iPhone, right? An iPhone has a serial number on it, right? Because every time you purchase those items and you're planning to sell that, they give you a specific serial number on there. So you can identify what that part is. And that's where that section is for. Now, again, we're not selling a specific item particularly. This is a general item, right? You can buy a bunch of wooden frames. They don't need to have a specific ID number on them. But if you want to keep the barcode the same, then you can go ahead and enter in that manufacturing part number on there. Okay, because every item has a barcode. All right, but in this case, we don't care for it because in this case, it doesn't matter which picture frame we sell, right? They're all going to be the same, right? All right. So then the next one is going to be the description that's going to be on the sales receipt. Once again, so you can use this on a purchase orders. You can use it on any type of template. If you use it on a sales order, right? That means, right, you can use the copy function and it can appear here. So once again, if it appears on any form such as a purchase order, I want it to also appear the same exact way on your sales form. Or you can even modify it so that when you sell the item to your customer, they know exactly what the product that they're buying. Okay, so in this case, I just clicked on it and it filled in automatically. Okay, so now let's go ahead and take a look at the cost. Now, in this case, the cost could be whatever you'd like. Okay, or sorry, not whatever you like. That's sales. The cost is going to be whatever it cost you to be able to purchase that item from a vendor. Okay, most cases, right? It's a stable number, but again, we also have to look at the market as well. If wood is in shortage, then you can expect it to be a high price. But if there's abundance of it, then you can expect it to stay consistent every time you make a purchase of this inventory asset. So in this case, I believe it's gonna cost you. I think it costs you. Let's see, $5. Right, to purchase one wooden frame. Once again, wooden frames, right, is kind of complex because, right, you could choose specific types of woods, but it could also be the labor. They have to nail them together. Okay, so again, wood, and then once again, you want to make sure it's in your cost of goods sold. So that every time you sell an item and you're getting rid of it, you're essentially selling them, and it's gonna calculate behind the scenes how much it cost you to sell the item. All right? And preferred vendor, it's up to you. If you are purchasing this specific item from only one vendor and one vendor only, then you can go ahead and use the preferred vendor. Now, let's say I buy this 5x7 wooden picture frame, right? But I buy the different types of woods from different types of vendors. Then you don't need to put a preferred vendor. In this case, they say that we only have one, Mr. Ace Supply. Okay. Once we establish how much it's going to cost me to purchase every wooden picture frame, now is going to be the question on how much am I going to sell it to my customers for? And in this case, I want 99% profit. Okay, so then that means I'm going to sell it for a high price of $9.99, right? If I wanted 100% profit, then I would make it $10 even. So that means not only do I sell, or not only did it cost me half the price, I'm getting the full benefits of charging my customers twice for what it's worth. Therefore, pocketing 100% profit for my item. So in this case, I gain $4.99 for every picture frame I sell. Okay, and that's a lot because we have to consider how much did it cost you to sell it. Okay, if it cost me $5, right, then I'm gonna make sure I get to pocket $4.99. So this is a 99% profit since I'm not doing a full $5. I'm only getting $4.99 out of it. So I'm gonna charge my customers $9.99 per picture frame. Okay. And of course, and it says right here, sales tax code, right? All products that you sell should have some kind of sales tax on it. And of course, we're going to associate this as income because that's exactly what we are sales, right? Because we're going to sell the product. Okay. So now that we figured out how much it's going to cost me to purchase it, we figured out how much we're going to sell it to our customers for. Now, this is the part where we need to link the asset account, right? So every time we purchase the inventory, I wanted to drop it into the account called inventory asset. So once again, this is us purchasing our inventory, right? It's us claiming that we own this inventory. And every time we sell it, it's going to update our inventory to get rid of it. So it shows that if we purchase 20 of them, right, every time we sell it, it gives us a balance at the end of the day saying, okay, well, today you sold 2, the next day you sold 5, and then the next day you sold 4. So you could always know how much your ending balance is at the end of every single day. All right? And here's what's also even cool. You can set reminders to let you know that, hey, you're running low on inventory. Okay? So in this case, it says here, right, what should be the reorder point? Reorder point is how much in your inventory should you fall to for you to recognize that you need to make a purchase as soon as possible. Now, of course, this depends on how often you sell your product, of course. And the second thing is also how long does it take for you to receive those items? If it takes you 1 day, then you could do your reorder point at a very low point. But let's say, once again, it takes 5 to 7 business days, then you definitely want to make sure that you let yourself know that if you're low at a specific point, right? And depending on how often you sell it, you definitely want to make sure that this number is going to be something that you're going to reflect. Like, for example, I'm going to say if my inventory falls below 20, 20 is my minimum that I want it to fall below. Okay. Once my inventory says that I only have 20 items left, it's going to remind me to make another purchase. Okay. And once again, you can edit this part right here, but just make sure that you know that it will change your account information, such as on hand and what the total value is. So if you're doing, once again, if you're setting up your QuickBooks, and you are a pre-existing company, right, and you're just using QuickBooks for the first time, but you already have existing inventory, you can go ahead and enter in the item and set how much you have on hand and what the total value is, okay? But once again, we would also be able to take a look at this towards the end of the book. Okay, so when we come back from the break, this section is where we get to adjust the inventory on hand as well as the total value. So they usually recommend you not to use this section here. They recommend you to use the adjustments. Okay. And once again, everything looks good, so I'm going to go ahead and click OK. So let's notice this. I have frame 5x7 metal, and now I have a frame 5x7 wood. Okay, so once again, now I'm building my items, and it's reflecting just like that. Okay. Any questions in regards to this? This is just building your items, which we took a look at in chapter 7. But this time I'm focusing on my inventory assets, the items that I'm, or the products that I sell and that I acquire. Right? Any questions here? No. Okay. So once we do that, okay, so now the next thing that we're going to take a look at is going to be taking a look at how the QuickBooks processes or how it calculates every time you make a sell of an item. So here, if you look here, it gives you that every time you deal with this type of inventory, it will always use the average cost. Now, for those who were in my accounting class, and for those who will be in my accounting class, we're going to take a look at 3 different types of costing inventory. Now, with QuickBooks Pro and QuickBooks Pro and QuickBooks Premier can only do the average cost. Okay? Only QuickBooks Enterprise is able to go ahead and use different types of cost every time you sell an item. So you can see right here, only QuickBooks Pro, Premier, and Accountant uses the average costing. Enterprise can exercise and do every single other type of costing out there. So when we talk about that, right? What do you mean by that? So when we go into accounting, you're going to learn that there's the first in, first out rule, or first in, first out method, right? Where every time you make a purchase of inventory, you generally want to sell those items first. So that would be definitely useful for a grocery type of business, right? Especially when you have perishable goods. If you buy milk in cases, you definitely want to sell the first batch first, because if you don't and you leave it till the very end, then all the milk that you bought from your first batch is going to spoil. So you definitely want to get rid of the first items that you purchase first because of the expiration date. Now, of course, last in, first out, you can take a look at, for example, the iPhone, right? Every year the new iPhone comes out, what do you expect? The latest and the greatest model is always going to be the first one that you sell out first, or that you sell first. And then the other models, you slowly get rid of them, right? You throw out promotional deals saying, oh, it's now lower price, right? But however, the concept of the last batch that came first, or the last batch that created, usually is going to be the first that you get rid of first, okay? And then there's also a weighted average here. There's average costing, and then they have a whole bunch of other ones that I've never heard of, okay? But we've also taken a look at in accounting, right? Specific ID, right? If you have a specific item. But when you go into enterprise, you have beyond that. There's a lot more than that, than those normal 3 that we learn in class. Now, of course, like I've mentioned before, only QuickBooks Pro Premier and Accountant uses the average costing. So therefore, no matter how many items we purchase, no matter how much it costs us, it's going to always update and give us an average cost per item. So maybe one day I bought the items, 100 items at $5, and then the next time I purchase it, I purchase 100 items at $5.25. It's going to take the difference, but it's going to take the average between the 200 and the total of whatever 525 plus 500, which is 1,025. It's going to take the 1,025 divided by the 200, and it's going to give you an average cost. And it explains here in the book, if you're not familiar on how average costing works, it's the total quantity, okay? What's the total cost divided by your total quantity. So whatever goods that you have available, no matter what the total cost is, whatever it costs you to purchase them, it's going to take that and divide it against your amount of total quantity that you purchased overall. Okay, so once again, it gives you a little diagram of how that works, and explains how the how QuickBooks calculates the average cost. Okay, so once again, this is important because when we talk about how QuickBooks calculates it behind the scenes, you need to understand that every time you sell an item, it's going to cost you money, right? And when we're looking at how much it costs you to purchase the items, it's different on how much you sell the items for, okay? All right, so now that we talked about that, next is going to be how we start invoicing or selling our items. Well, in this case, I want to show you how to make a purchase first before we actually sell our items, right? Because when we take a look, I'll show you how it works here. Actually, we did this in chapter 2, okay? So I'll go ahead and just do a brief one since it's here. Okay, so Jerry Perez, he buys 2 picture frames, I believe. Yes, he buys 2 metal picture frames. So once again, because we created the item, right? It's so easy to utilize it on any kind of form, right? Especially when it's selling to your customer, right? So if I go ahead and this is Jerry Perez. Whoop, not Carrie. Jerry Perez, right? It is so easy for you to go ahead and type in what the item is. So in this case, we have quantity of 2, and the item here was the 5x7, right? If we type in 5, notice that my drop-down menu gives me 2 options. Is it the metal one or the wooden one? In this case, it's the metal. And let's take a look here. Because we set the prices, right? In this case, my metal picture frame is set priced at $5.99 per picture frame. This is a set notion. Now what I can do here is, let's say I decided to change the price of it. I can manually enter it in. So if it's no longer $5.99, right? Because maybe, let's say, the price of metal, right? Maybe obtaining the metal is costing too much, or there's a high demand for the metal picture frame. So therefore, the person who sold it to you charged you a higher price for it, right? The price rose. So therefore, I need to adjust my selling price. So I can do that by saying, okay, now it's $7.99. And once I do that, it's going to automatically calculate it right here, telling me that it is now $15.98, right? But in this case, I'm just going to revert it back to $5.99 because in the example, that's what it tells you, right? And I believe this is for the Walnut Creek location for Jerry Perez. Okay. So once everything looks good, right? Tax, because it's a taxable item, right? It's a product that you're selling. Once again, your message could say, thank you. Right? Thank you for your business. And then you could say 2 5x7 metal picture frame. Okay? Whatever it is that you can do, we already took a look at this in chapter 2. And this is how we create the item, and now this is how we get to take a look at how we can use that item on a sales form or an invoice to show that we got rid of this item. So this is how we use the dual functionality of the item that we just created. Okay? By one, you can use it on a sales form. Okay? And I'm going to go ahead and click Save and Close. All right? So once again, this was all chapter 2. Okay? So then now let's go ahead and take a look at how we can create a transaction job. Okay, now in this case, I'm not going to do this part. You could go ahead and read this on your own. It's pretty straightforward. You get to take a look at the transactions that each person has. So once again, transaction journal. If you go on to the actual invoice itself at the very, very top, you can locate your transaction journal there. But in this case, you can also see that through your customer center as well. You don't need to run a report on it. You can if you'd like, but in this case, you don't have to. And here you can learn how to set your reminders for you to make your purchases of inventory. Okay? So any questions in regards to that? Okay. I definitely want to get into the meat of this section here. Is going to be taking a look at how we purchase our inventory. Okay? And as we make our purchases of inventory, I'm going to also show you the reports that you can do every time you make your purchase of inventory. All right? Okay. Any questions so far?
No, I'm good.
Okay. So, once again, we're going to take a look at how we purchase our inventory. So once again, you have two choices. You can purchase your inventory by simply writing a check, or you can use the purchase orders. Now, once again, I'm going to recommend this is that the best type of way that you want to keep track of your inventory is going to be by using the purchase orders window. Now, of course, you can go to the store and make purchases of your inventory asset as well. That's why you're able to write a check for it, right? That's the first example that we're going to take a look at. But once again, it's going to be ideal for you to make your purchase of inventory using the purchase orders window, because not only that, it actually helps you be able to process the items that you received, but it also allows you to build a bill on top of that. Okay. Whereas if you go to the store and you pick up items for you that you sell for your inventory as your inventory, right? The only thing you'll have as a reference is going to be your receipt number. Okay, and that's pretty much it. In regards to viewing or looking at the items that you have is right. We'll talk about how to do the reports in a second, but it's generally much more beneficial, especially if you're using QuickBooks, right, to do the work for you. You definitely don't want to manually have to type in everything or manually have to purchase your inventory from a store and have it manually put in by using the adjustments. You definitely want to utilize the functionality of QuickBooks by making this purchase orders and having you either receive or not. But that doesn't mean you're limited to, okay? So the very first one I'm going to show you is how we're going to take a look at when we just simply go to the store and we purchase inventory asset items, right? And we pay at time of purchase. So the very, 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 very first one is we're going to take a look at writing a check, okay? And we're going to write this to Wong and Son, okay? Make sure it's you're going to take it from your checking account, nowhere else, okay? And again, I'm going to go ahead and save this, right? We made, I think the check number, let's see. The check number, we wrote a manual check. Okay, so let's see. You wrote that check to Wong and Son. Okay. On 4/7. Okay. So we wrote this, we purchased the items on April 7th of 2019. Okay, April 7. Since we wrote a manual check, I don't think 330 is available. I think you have to skip to 332 for the manual check here. Okay, and then the, let's see, we got to write in our vendor, of course. This is Wong and Son. Okay, so again, their information pulls up. Now, here's the key thing that you need to make sure that you take a look at. So notice this, there's two types of tabs when you see here. One is for expenses, which is your accounts, and then the other one is your items. So this one you have to toggle between the two, especially if you're making purchases of inventory, right? So you want to make sure that you select items. And here we're going to make a purchase of the SR32 camera. So the item that we're buying is the camera SR32. And, oh, actually, no, I'm sorry. This is going to be the lenses. Sorry. So we're going to make not the SR, we're doing the lenses. There you go, lenses. And it says that we purchased 5 from them. Okay? And then, let's see. We bought the lenses. Okay. And it's going to be for the Walnut Creek location. All right. Now, again, it says check number 330, but once again, I believe that's probably an invalid check number. I'm pretty certain it is. So once everything looks good, right, we made a purchase of the 5 lenses, right? And let's go ahead and click save. So yes, the check number, okay, cancel. So I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna make it 332 and then save and close. Okay. So now we wrote a check and we purchased 5 camera lenses. So how do we get to take a look at where we locate all of that, right? So here you could go up to the reports menu and we're gonna go ahead and take a look at our items and inventory. So let's take a look. Inventory, okay? You have the choices between the valuation, which isn't what we're looking at, but stock status, okay, is what we're going to be taking a look at. So stock status by item. So if I click on that and I click on the all, right, since we're in 2021, notice this. Let's take a look at my camera lenses, right? I have 20 of them available. Actually, no, I don't have 20 of them available. Let me see, max. On hand, I have 12, okay? So that means since I made a purchase of 5 of those items, right, that means I previously had 7 readily available on hand, okay? Now let's actually take a look at this since we're already here, right? Let's notice this. We have 9 cameras, right? We currently have the metal picture frames. We have 20 of them, and we have 0 of the wooden picture frames, right? Because we just entered in those items. Okay, we just entered in that item, and it has 0 items available, right? But for my metal, I have 20 available. Okay. And of course, my camera lenses, right, I have 12 available. So this is called the inventory stock status. So what this does for me is that it allows me to go ahead and take a look at how much I have on hand at any given time. I can create this report any time that I'd like. All right. So that was me purchasing the inventory items by writing a manual check. Okay, and look, it updated my stock status on my lenses, right? I have 12 now available. Okay, now once again, we're gonna focus on the metal, which is 20 available, and my wooden ones, which is 40 available. Okay, and that's gonna be the next one that we do. Okay, we're just gonna click yes. Wait, cancel. I don't want to close out this. There you go. Okay. So, oh no, let's cancel this. All right, so there you go. That's how you make a purchase of inventory by writing a manual check and using the items instead of the account itself, right? So if I were to dump that into the inventory asset account, right? That one, I would not be able to differentiate what I actually purchased. In that case, I'm just dumping it into the area, the general area. And what's going to happen is that when I actually attempt to sell those items, it's not going to reflect because it's just taking it out from the account. But in this case, I specified the item that I purchased. All right. Any questions there? Okay. So now that was writing a manual check. Okay. So now let's take a look at the purchase orders. So if I go ahead and click on purchase orders, right, you're going to get the purchase orders window. Okay. And just like that, you're able to do the same 6 ways to enter in a purchased order, right? If you go up to the top to your menu bar, right, you can also create a purchase order right here. Okay? if you go to the income tracker, right, you're able to go down here and be able to create a purchase order here. Okay, hold on, create memo, purchase. Oh, okay, hold on, let me see if I right click. No, no purchases. Okay, so no purchases on the income tracker. That's weird. You should be able to. And then, of course, if you go to the vendor center, right, any way that you get to the vendor center, whether it's the home page, icon bar, or the menu bar. So I'm going to go to the vendor center here. Okay, you could go to the new transactions and you can create a purchase order here. Right click on each vendor and you'd be able to create a purchase order. Okay, and of course, when you're on here on the vendor center, let me close this out. Vendor center, right? And you go to manage transactions, you have your purchase order right here. Okay. So once again, at most transactions, right, if you can do one, you can pretty much locate where the rest are. So once again, the vendor center, right, pretty much allows you to do all the transactions that you can do for a vendor. So once again, those are the 5 different ways. I don't know why Income Tracker doesn't have it. You should be able to create a purchase order through there. But I don't know why it's not there. Okay, so that's the 5 ways. So home page, menu, any way you get to the vendor center, new transactions to the top of the window, right click on the vendor, or you could click on the vendor, manage transactions. Okay. So once we've done that, I've decided, you know what, I come back to the home page and I click on that purchase order. So the person that we're going to go to is going to be Ace Supply. Okay, and this one's going to be for the Walnut Creek location. The date is going to be the 7th of April. Now the PO number is very important. I'm going to say this is PO 2019-1. Okay, the purchase orders is very, very important because it allows you to keep track of, obviously, what you've purchased, right? And when we come back from the break, I'm going to show you what happens when we receive the items, right? We're going to reference them through the purchase order number, okay? So in this case, it's going to ask me, what are the items that I'm making purchases of, right? First one's going to be my 5x7 metal frame. And I'm also going to make a purchase of the 5x7 wooden frame, okay? So once I make purchases of them, all right, I'm going to say that I need 20 metal frames and I want 40 of the wooden frames. Now notice this. My cost per item has already filled in for me, right? If you guys remember when we set up the item, right, I set that my wooden frame would cost me $5 to purchase. Now, once again, if anything happens to the market or any supply and demand, right, this cost can fluctuate. It's not going to always stay the same. And the great thing about it is you can go ahead and enter it in here. Let's say it's $5.15 now, right? I can manually change it and it's going to say, oh, you made changes to this. Would you like to update it? And I'm going to say no. Okay, so I'm going to change it back to $5, of course. But yes, you can manually change the setting or the input here by simply just entering it in through here. And, QuickBooks is just going to recognize, oh, you made changes to this. Okay, so in this case, that's all you need is to recognize that this is the cost that we set in when we made our item. Okay. Again, you can make purchases for a particular customer if you like. And we'll see this more predominantly in chapter 9. Okay. So tomorrow, right? So any message you want to say to the vendor? It's up to you. I don't think there's anything here, but the memo for sure is purchased 20 metal and 40 wooden. Okay. And once again, my total is 243. All right. Most cases, what's going to happen is when you do set a purchase order, and because the vendor to customer relationship, most likely you're not going to get taxed for it. No sales tax. You could get tax exempt if you are purchasing from a manufacturing company. Now, of course, it depends as well. Sometimes you do, sometimes they'll charge you anyways. So when you receive the bill, all you got to do is you got to make sure that you recognize if you do get charged tax that you need to add that as part of your bill. But in this case, most cases, any purchases that you do make a purchase of, it's going to not have sales tax. Okay? And I can go ahead and click save and close. Right? Once I get that beep of approval, let's go ahead and visit my vendors list. So once again, A Supply. If I click on here and I click all transactions, of course, I'm going to notice that, look, I have a purchase order. Okay, I just created one for the 2019-1. Okay, and it was 447. So once again, if I click on my purchase order, it shows me this is exactly what I sent out. Okay, and that's what I've requested from my vendor. Okay. Other things you could take a look at is you can run a report as well. All right. If you go here and you go to your purchases, you're gonna see that you can do open purchase orders. So right here, open purchase orders. If I click on that report, shows me right here my purchase order that I made on the 7th. If to A Supply is for the $243. Okay, and then if I bring that down, okay, yes, okay. And then once again, if I want to double click on it, I can see the purchase order right here saying that I purchased 20 of the metal frames and 40 of the wooden frames. Okay. All right, so right now it is 10 o'clock. So what I'm going to do is I am going to stop here. We're going to take a break. And then when we come back, we're going to visit what happens when we actually receive our items. Okay? Any questions on making purchases?